Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Transaction Desk Basic Training. Today, I'm going to show you the easiest way to get logged in. We're going to create a transaction. We're going to create a signing. We're going to go through the signing as if we are the signer. So you'll see what your clients will see. And then at the end, I'll show you some shortcuts like creating templates, using clauses, and sharing transactions with a team. So the first thing I want to show you is the easiest way to get logged in. So if you're starting from the AAR website, which is aaronline.com, you want to select the option here on the right that says login with single sign-on, which is going to take you to a different login page. If you click the Transaction Desk button from your MLS, this is where it's going to take you. So we're always going to go to the same place. So on this page, you want to manually type everything. You never want to copy and paste or use a password saving program. So in the top box, it's going to specifically request your NERDS number. You can check the box to save it, so you don't have to type that in the future, but you do have to type your password each time. If it's your first time logging in this way, your password will be your last name with the first letter capitalized, and then you'll go through an enrollment and change your password. So if you start from your MLS, it will automatically take you into Transaction Desk. If you start from AAR, we still need to go to the Transaction Desk button here, and we still need to launch it. So you just want to do the launch. If you launch via personal account, that will take you to the Transaction Desk direct login page, but your MLS will never link you there. So it's just easier to do it this way. So when we log into Transaction Desk, our landing page is going to be our agent dashboard, which is our overview of everything in our program. This page is fully customizable. So let me show you your other menu options on the left, and then I'll show you how to customize your dashboard. So if you hover over each of these menu options, it will tell you what it is. You can also click your 3 green lines at the top, which we call the hamburger, and that will expand out your menu so you can see what everything is. So our dashboard is our overview. Our transactions is just our list of transactions that we've created and nothing else. The signings is just our list of signings and nothing else. You're going to notice classic versus new. The classic version is going to go away mid-November, so we're going to be teaching the new version. Forms is where you can go if you just want to view a form or print out a blank form. I'm admin, so I have every library in the state. You guys should only see your Arizona Association of Realtors library, your local MLS library, and possibly a broker library. Documents is document storage within this program. So if you have documents that you often upload into a transaction, I would encourage you to save them into this part of the program. It is unlimited document storage, no limit to the number of files or the file size that you upload. That way, if you're ever out and about and don't have your own computer with you, you can log into any computer and still access your documents. Broker tools, you'll see if you have admin features. Tasks is something you can create for yourself as reminders of things you need to do. So you can be emailed reminders to submit paperwork to the title company or to schedule pest control or something like that. We're not going to go through tasks in this version, but it is something that you can create for yourself. Contacts is your main address book. So if you want to make changes to a name or an email address, I encourage you to do it from your main address book. Partners is different things that Transaction Desk offers. Settings is where we'll go to set things up. So if you need to look at your profile, or if you want to set up a template, set up a clause, set up a sharing group, we're going to come to settings. And then help is really great information here. So Transaction Desk has 24-hour support at this phone number every single day of the year. They also have email support. Email responses are generally about 48 hours. So if it's not urgent, you can email them directly. You can do live chat support. If you're a large company, you can do your own online training with Transaction Desk. Feedback, I encourage you guys to use this feature. If there's something the program doesn't do or something you want to see it do a little differently, the more agents that send in feedback, the more likely they are to add that feature in when they do future updates. And then guides, help videos, and webinars are some really great training. So your webinars are about an hour long. Help videos are individual videos by topic. So they're usually 3 to 5 minutes long. So if you just want to watch one quick video on uploading a document or editing a signing, you can look for a video here. And then guides are written PDF guides. So if you'd rather read the information than watch a video, you can get that information here. So let's start from our dashboard, which is our landing page. If I want to customize this, there's a padlock in the top right corner that we can click on to open. Everything in blue is going to be an action shortcut. So right now I have a shortcut to create a new transaction and to create a new signing. I also have a shortcut to the support feature. If I want to have a shortcut to create a template, all I do is click it and drag it onto my screen and then move it wherever I want it to be. If there's something you don't want to see on your screen, you can click the X to remove it, and it will put it back up at the top in your menu. Everything in green is an overview. So right now I have an overview of all of the transactions I've done and all of the signings I've done. We can move these boxes around and resize them as we want to. So let's say we also want an overview of the tasks we've created. We just click and drag that down, and then we can resize it as we want. And then when you have everything in place, click your padlock to lock everything back into place. So the easiest way to start a transaction is to click the Create Transaction shortcut. If we click there, the only thing we have to do is give it a name. So anything with a red asterisk, or if you ever see the fields in red, that will be required. The name is just the name of your file. So you can call it whatever you want, your property address, your buyer, seller's name, anything you want to call your file. So I'm going to call this one 123 Glendale Boulevard. If you have a template created, this is one of the places you can apply it. If you want to give your transaction a type, this would be for searching and sorting purposes later. So once you have 100 transactions, if you only want to see your residential purchase or your condo sales, you can search by the type. Import data, if you're familiar with zip form, over there it was called MLS Connect. Here it's called import data. This is just a shortcut that takes information from an active listing and pulls it onto your form so you don't have to type it. There's about 20 or so fields that it will populate, like the property information, water source info, school information, things like that. So if you want to use this feature, you select the MLS that the listing is with. You always want to make sure the listing type matches. It's going to default to residential, but maybe it's a residential rental, maybe it's land and lots. So select your listing type and then put in your MLS number. So I just picked a random MLS number this morning. And then here's another shortcut to add me as either the listing agent, the buyer's agent, or both. So this would just add you in the contact section as that person so that your name will populate on any form where you would need to be the listing agent, buyer's agent, etc. So I'm going to manually add us later. So I'll do neither for now. And if you don't want to use import data, if you're creating a listing right now, you just want to leave that at select source so it doesn't force you to give it a number. Once you select your MLS, it won't let you move forward until you give it that information. So we will do that. We can leave the wizard box checked and click create. So since we decided to go through the wizard, which is just the most commonly used steps when creating a transaction, we're in step 1. We can fill out this information and click next when we're ready. Since we did use the import data feature, it pulled a picture from the listing. It gave some information about the listing, such as the street address, seller information. Any fields you see populated here already pulled from the listing. This information will populate onto your forms. So you have the option to fill in the blanks here, and it will populate onto your forms, or you can just open up your form and fill in the blank on the forms, and that information will cross-populate back to these screens. So once we have that filled out, we can click next. Step 2 is just some additional dates that we can add. When we have those filled out, we can click next. Step 3 is our contacts. If you already see contacts here, they pulled from the listing. So the listing agent, broker, and seller information are here. If you want to add your own contacts, anytime you're adding something in this program, you always look for your plus sign. So plus to add, you can create a brand new contact that you've never used before. You can pull an existing contact from your address book. You can add yourself and it will pull the information from your profile, or you can import contacts from Google. So if we're using somebody brand new, we create a new contact. Again, everything with a red asterisk is required. So we do have to give it a type. The system wants to help you. It wants to know, where do you want me to put this person's name on the contract? Are they your buyer? Are they your seller? Are they the landlord? So this person will be my buyer. And we'll give it a name here. How about Angela? Oops. Angela buys homes. That is her name. That's the only thing you have to put in there. If you want to put in her email address now, you can. Where you see the fields legal name versus preferred signature and preferred initials, as long as the name on the contract is going to be the same way they sign, you can leave those blank. But if you have perhaps a family trust or a power of attorney where the actual name on the contract, the legal name is going to be maybe Smith Jones Family Trust, but the way they're going to sign is going to be Angela Buys Homes, you would put that information here. It will automatically save it to your address book unless you tell it not to, and then we click save. If we want to add another contact, we click plus again. If we want to pull from our address book, go to existing contact, select one person at a time, because as you add them, that screen will come up in case you want to make any changes. So even if you don't want to give them a type, you do have to say something. So there is an option for general, which will not put them on the document anywhere automatically. You can manually add them later. So we're going to make this person our buyer this time. And all the other information is correct. So we're going to save. Okay, so as I'm going through this wizard, all of these steps are over here on the right. So if you didn't want to use the wizard and you wanted to jump right to forms or right to your documents, you can do that over here on the right. So once we have all of our contacts added, we're going to click next to go to forms. Now notice there's forms and there's documents. Forms are your fillable forms that we provide for you from your AAR and your MLS libraries. So think of the letter F for fillable and the letter F for forms. Documents would be anything you would upload from the outside. So something saved on your computer, something another agent sends you. So even if it is a purchase contract that would have been fillable if you added it, if another agent sends it to you as a PDF, it's considered a document and is not fillable in this portion of the program. You can add text boxes during the signing portion. So let's say you get the BINSR from the buyer, and as your seller, you have to do the seller's response. You won't be able to fill it out in the transaction portion here. You can upload the document, but you have to go into the signing to create a text box. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that when we get into the signing portion. So how do we add a form? We click our plus sign to add, which will give you all of your form libraries. So we'll select the Arizona Association library. Everything is alphabetical. So all you have to do is either click the name of the form and you'll notice the circle check, or you can just check the circle itself. So I'm just going to add a few forms. If you don't want to scroll through and you just want to search for a keyword, we can type a keyword at the top, maybe my purchase contract. We type in the word purchase. It will show me every form that has the word purchase in it, no matter what library it's in. So most of these are from the AAR library, but there is one here from the Tucson library. So make sure if you have multiple MLSs that you're working with, you select the correct listing form for that particular MLS. So let's find my purchase contract. Once we have that added, we can undo our search and get back to our full list of forms and add anything else we need to add. As you add things, they'll show in your basket. So if you can't remember if you added something, you can click your basket and it will show you everything you've added so far. You have the option to remove something that you don't need right now, or you can add it and remove it later if you don't end up using it. So once we have our forms selected, we click add. They'll put them in the order, alphabetical order. So if you want to change something, all you have to do, oh, actually, it looks like the order I selected it. So if I want to change the order, all I have to do is click and drag. And then when I'm ready to open up a form to type on it, I just click on the name of the form. Okay, so anything that you see that's highlighted in a color is fillable. So most of your forms will be fillable with your checkboxes and your text fields. The only difference would be the spuds. So you'll notice the spuds form does not have these fillable checkboxes. It's the only form that's designed to be printed and filled out by hand by the seller. Okay, so any fields that you see already filled out, pulled from either the import data feature that we used, or when you added the contact and said Angela was buyer 1 and Rebecca was buyer 2, it does put them in that order, the order that you add them. So if you have a husband and wife team and you wanted the wife to be first, be sure to add the wife first. Okay. Across the top here are some menu options. So if you do fill out your forms and you're ready to go on to another form, make sure you click the Save Exit button at the top. You never want to click your browser back arrow. That will not save anything. That's going to take you back to a previous page and you'll lose anything you tried to save. So always click Save Exit to go back to your list of forms and then move on from there. I'm going to open that up again, show you what some of your other menu options are. So across the top here, if you click File, New means you can add an additional form. So if I forgot to add a form, I can click New, get back to my list of libraries, and select another form. It won't open the form, it just adds it to the transaction. If you want to open that form, you go to File, Open Form, and you just select the form that you want to switch to. You only have one form open at a time, so you don't have multiple tabs. That same menu option is here for transaction forms. It's just the forms you've already added to your transaction, and you can switch to any other form. Okay. You don't have to manually save, but you can. So it will auto save as long as you're moving forward to another page. But if you do choose to save, you want to just click the plain old save button, which is saving it in your transaction. If you want to download a PDF version onto your computer, you can click Save as PDF. You do also have the option to make a copy of a form that's already in your transaction. In zip form, if you already added a form, it would highlight in blue and you would not be able to add another version of that form. This program does allow you to do that. However, your fields are all linked together in each transaction. So if we wanted to make a change to the purchase contract and we made a copy of it, our buyer, seller, premises address, legal description, close of escrow date, pricing, all of that is going to be linked throughout the entire transaction. So just be careful when making a copy of a document. I would not recommend it, but it is an option that you have. Erase is handy if you start typing on a form and realize you made a mistake on the whole page. Instead of having to click on each field and delete, you can erase either the current page that you're on or all of the pages on that form. Again, your fields are linked together. So erasing a page on one form erases that field on all of your forms until you fill in the corrected information. Watermark is something I encourage you to use if somebody wants a blank form from you. So your name and company information is at the bottom of the form when something is printed or emailed. So if somebody wants a blank copy, just click the draft watermark so they can't give away your form to somebody else in the future. If their neighbor comes to them a year from now and says, hey, do you still have a blank copy of that purchase contract? I don't want to hire a realtor. I just want to use that form. That's copyright violation and you can be fined for that and you can lose your form privileges. So just protect yourself by using a watermark. And then when you're ready to use the form, you can just remove the watermark. If you want to delete something, you're always going to look for your trash can. You can print this one single form that's open. You can send it by email or fax as well. You can send a copy into the document storage. You can access help from here, and your save exit button that's at the top right corner is also here. Your font style is something that's useful if you're in the additional terms and conditions box, or you're filling out an addendum and you might just need one more line so you don't have to go to another addendum. Play around with your font style. They are different sizes, so it could give you just that little bit of room that you need without going to another form. The size remains at 10, and your uppercase, lowercase you would do on your keyboard. Clauses is one of my favorite features. Let me jump down to a blank page here and show you how that would work. So if you have information that you often add to a document, whether it's a long paragraph or you have the wording down just perfectly and you don't want to have to consult your notes or remember how you phrased it, instead of typing out your information, you can actually add a clause. So you just put your cursor where you want the clause inserted, hit your clause button. You would have created your own personal clauses. It's possible that your broker created clauses for your office to use as well, but yours are in personal clauses. If you don't remember what it says, you can click on the name of it to open it up and read it. And then to add it, you just select it and say, okay. It will insert that text for you. You can still come in and make some changes. Anything that you change here, adding or deleting, does not change your saved clause. It just changes it on the document here. And you can add as many clauses as you have room for on the document. So if I want to add additionals, I click clause, personal clauses, select the ones I want in the order I want them to show, and say, okay. We're going to create clauses at the end of class when we create our templates, but when you're ready to apply them, you would do that with the document open. You did see that I can jump to different pages instead of having to scroll. I can also zoom in or out. So sometimes you're doing your profile sheet and the text is a little bit small, so you can zoom in. Anywhere you see the pen, you can create a signing. So there are many different ways to start assigning in this program. No matter how you start, the procedure will be the same. So even if I start the signing from here with this document open, I can still add as many documents as I want, and I can add as many signers as I want. But we're not going to start it this way. We're going to do it a different way for class. We're going to save exit out of here. And we have one more step for the wizard. So we're going to click next and go to documents. So if you did see documents here, they would have pulled from the listing. So public and private documents will pull from the listing. So if there's a SPUDS already in there, or if there's an HOA addendum in there, you will see that information. If you want to add your own, click the plus sign to add, and there are multiple places to add things from. So the first one is to upload from your device or computer. If you have that selected, you click the blue box, pull up the form. If you want to add something from document storage, so some places it's still called DocBox, but it's that document storage within this program. So I can go to my own folder, so I can create my own folders here. I can go into my documents, and I have a pet agreement saved, so I'm going to go ahead and upload my pet agreement. I can also upload things from the cloud. And there's also another shortcut here called email upload. So if another agent sent you a bunch of attachments by email, instead of having to download them to your computer and then uploading them here, you can actually click this envelope and get the email address that's for this particular transaction. So what I'm going to do is just copy. I'm going to right click and copy. And if I go to my email and I see that somebody sent me a couple attachments, here they are at the bottom, I can forward my email to that special email address. So all I'm doing is right clicking and pasting. And when I send it, what it's doing is taking these attachments and putting it into the document section of my transaction. So that same envelope icon is here at the very top of your page. So anytime you want to email upload something, you can get that email address for this transaction. Okay, so that's going to take just a couple minutes to come through. So in the meantime, I'm going to click done. So I'm done with the wizard. Any of those steps that I did are on the right. So if I want to jump back to contacts or jump back to forms, I can do that. So in this program, your main menu is on the left. Your transaction menu will be on the right. When you're adding something new, you're looking for your plus sign. Your three little circles here are your menu bubbles. So if you want to print or edit, let me go to forms, it'll be easier. My menu bubbles are different depending on the screen that I'm in. So my contacts menus will be different from my forms menus. But if I wanted to send something by email, or if I wanted to delete it, I can do all of that from here. If I wanted to do something to multiple forms or possibly see additional menu options, I would click my big circle and go to my basket. So your basket will let you do the same actions to more than one form at a time. So if I want to delete all three, I can. If I want to email all three, I can, print all three, etc. So if you don't see the menu option with your three little menu bubbles, so I'm looking for the print option, I don't see it here. I can select that and go to my basket, and then I have a printer option here. Okay, so main menu on the left, transaction menu on the right, plus sign to add, menu bubbles, and basket. That is 90% of this program. Okay, so let's jump back into documents and see if those attachments showed up. So here they are. So those two PDFs that were attached to my email are now in my transaction. Okay, any questions on creating a transaction? That's the basics of doing a transaction. So it's pretty simple. So we're going to pretend we have all of our forms filled out and we want to get some things signed. So again, there's multiple places to start assigning. Anywhere you see the pen, so I can come to my main menu and click my plus sign to add. If my document was open, I can click the pen from the very top. There's a shortcut on your dashboard. You can start from there. But since we're already in our transaction, we're going to go to the signings menu option here. And any signings that are attached to this transaction will already show. We don't have anything right now, so we're going to create it. So I click my plus sign to add. And again, we are going to use the 2.0 version. And we just need to give it a signing name. So again, this is just the name of this particular signing session. Be careful with your name. You don't want to call it something like purchase contract or counter offer number 1, because once you have your list of all of your signings, you might end up with 15 things called purchase contract and 6 things called counter offer number 1. So be specific in your signing name. I'm going to reference the name of my transaction and then a little bit about the documents. So let's say we're going to do the purchase contract and then we just save. If I did want to change the name, it is here across the top. So maybe I've realized my clients don't know what RPC means. So I'd rather call it purchase contract. I can change the name at the top. And then you want to go in order on the right. You do have the option to start adding a form right now. I just like to go in the order that the menu options are on the right. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my signers. Setting a signing order just means if I want one person to have to sign before the other person can go, I would set a signing order. And then the order I add my contacts would be the order they're going to receive their invitations. If you do this, the first person has to complete everything before the second person will get invited. So if you don't care who signs when, you can leave this unchecked. And that means everybody is going to get their signing invitation at the same time. They can click in their email and sign whenever they want. So to add your participants, you just select your menu options. If you want to add yourself, it's going to pull the information from your profile. If you want to add somebody brand new that was not part of the transaction, you can do that here. Most of the time, you're going to add them from your transaction. So you've already added your buyers or your sellers to the documents on the transaction. So most of the time, we're going to add them from here. You can also pull them from your address book or contacts from Google, but generally we're going to add from my transaction. So anybody who was part of the transaction will be listed here. So I'm working with the buyers. So I'm going to select Angela and Rebecca as my signers. The remote signer is generally who they're going to be. That just means they are on their own computer, wherever they are. You also have the option to make somebody a reviewer. This is not the same thing as your broker reviewing things later. This would be possibly a power of attorney who has to go through everything and agree to the pricing, the close of escrow date, all of the terms. If the reviewer says yes, everyone can complete. If the reviewer says no, no one can complete the transaction. And then a CC is somebody who's not part of the signing but needs a copy of the documents, maybe the other agent, maybe the title company. I would suggest not using this feature. Get your documents back signed, look them over and make sure everything is correct, and then forward them to anybody who needs a copy. You don't want to have something come back signed incorrectly, maybe a mistake you made, and have to contact the title company and say, please ignore that email. I will send you a corrected copy. So just get everything back and then forward it on. So we're going to have everybody as a remote signer, and then we just select. If you want to add somebody else, we just come back to add participants and select my menu option. So if we notice here that we have a little red exclamation, that means there's some information missing. So notice there's no email address for Angela, so we don't know where to send the invitation. So all we have to do is click on that person's contact, and anything missing is going to be in red. So we just want to add that information. And if you say update my transaction contact information, it's going to update in the actual transaction portion. So the next time you add that person as a signer, you won't have to add the email address again. It does not update the main address book on the left. You will have to go back to your main address book and change that later. Okay, so we are just going to go ahead and save. If you did add somebody that you don't want to sign now, you can just remove them from the signing. So if we make a change, we just click save. So all we're doing is clicking on the person to get their options. Oops. And we are adding the participants and selecting from where they pull from. Okay, so that's adding our signers. The next step is going to be to add our documents. So we're going to say which documents we're signing right now. So you can click from here or from here. If you are pulling from a transaction, the first menu option will be everything part of your transaction. So the forms and the documents, all you're doing is adding them. So whatever order you want them to be signed in, you can go ahead and click add, and it will show in that order. So I know you would never sign a pre-closing walkthrough and a purchase contract at the same time, but for class purposes, I just want to show you what those documents do so that you're aware of what you need to look at when you're getting those documents signed. Right, so we're going to add a couple things and then we just close. If we're uploading something that was not already added to the transaction, you do have the option to pull things from your computer, something from the cloud. You can also go into document storage. Remember when I added that pet agreement from that document section, you can also access that here. So if you forgot to add it in the transaction, you can add it now just by going into your folders. Generally, everything will be in your transaction. And once you have everything added, you just close out. If you forgot to add something, just click add document again, and you'll get that same menu option back. If you want to change the order that everything is seen when you're going through the signing, you just click and drag. Or maybe we have 10 different documents and we want this one to be number 10. We can just change the number and everything will shift. Okay. So once we have our documents added, we're going to go to the tools section. And this is just making sure that everybody's signature and initials are on the document. So most of this is going to be done for you. So if you use an AAR or an MLS document and you told the system that they were the buyer or the seller, the system is going to know to automatically put them there in the order that you added them. And they are going to be color coded. Okay, so one thing I do want to point out, page 4 for the lead-based paint, premises constructed prior to 1978 or later. This field here is set up as an either or. It's called an initial choice. That means they have to pick one or the other, but not both. It can be a little bit confusing for your clients when they go through the signing. They might just be clicking on everything in order. So they might click the first box and then click the second box, which makes the first box disappear, but that might be incorrect. So if you're worried about them clicking in the wrong box, what you're going to need to do is click on the option and delete it. And then you're just going to want to put an initial box in the place you want them to sign. So you would just drag the initial box over and make sure that they signed that. So that one would be required. I was doing a little testing earlier. So you do have options to default options for adding things to your signatures and initials. So if I click on that particular signature or initial, you're going to get this menu of what will show up when you add that. So right now I have it set that everything is always required, that it puts their name underneath the initial. So I can change that it automatically puts a date and a time as well. So I can undo that information and save that as my default. So always remember to save your default settings. So that way in the future, if you ever add, close out of there, if I ever add an initial box, it's just going to show the initials. If I change my default by clicking on it and maybe saying add the timestamp and set that as my default, the next time I add an initial box, it's going to show the timestamp for all signers in all signing sessions. So you can change those defaults at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to just the initial. And if there's already something that was there, you would have to manually delete it. Okay, so if you do want to delete something, just click on it and click your trash can. If you say, oops, I didn't mean to delete it, you can just click and drag it back. Very simple. Okay. So our job here is to scroll through and make sure everything is correct. So I encourage you to always check page 4 of your purchase contract for the lead-based paint area. So we're going to do it 2 ways. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the signer's perspective when we put it in a required place in one spot. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when they decide. Okay. So as we scroll through, we notice everything is good. If something seems a little bit out of place, all you have to do is click and drag it. Our date and our time are auto dates and time. So as soon as my client clicks on the signature or initials, the time will show automatically. They will not have to click the time. Okay. So the other form I want to show you is the buyer pre-closing walkthrough. So this is another form where they have the option to sign in 3 places. If I click on this particular signature area, my date stamp is automatically attached, but my signature box is not required. So here's what's going to happen when they sign. If it's not required, they're going to click on it and it's going to ask them, do you accept or you decline? Okay. So if I wanted it to be required, I can select it as required. And it will show a little bit in red required. If I want it to be optional, I can uncheck that. And when they go through the signing, it's going to ask, do you accept or you decline? Okay, so if you know as the agent which section they're going to sign, go ahead and do it for them and just delete the places you don't want them to sign. So if I delete this section and this section because I want them to sign section 3, they can only sign section 3. You can even make that section required by clicking on it and saying required. Okay, we don't have to save it as a default. We can do it just one time. So I make this required and then I close. Okay, so again, I'm going to leave all 3 for when we go through the second signing, and you'll see what it looks like when the signer has to say, I accept or I decline. And if you think that might be confusing for your clients, just delete the places you do not want them to sign. Okay. If you ever had to manually drag and drop anything else, I'm going to show you how we can do that. So again, we would select the signer. They're going to be color coded, so make sure the correct signer is selected. This is going to be your signature. This is going to be your initials. If you want them to add a line of text during the signing, this is for the signer to do it during the signing. I would say you would never ever want your client to be typing out information on a form that you can't see. So you don't want them to type that out and get it back. So in general, if a text box needs to be added, you as the agent will do that down here under the markup section. So we'll get to that in just a sec. So our checkbox, if they need to check something, if you want them to select one or the other, but not both, you would do the initial choice. So if there's a yes or a no, maybe there's multiple options. Maybe there's yes, no, not applicable. So what you would do would just click your plus to add another box, and then you can move them around if you need to. So what that's going to do is make them pick one or the other, but not all three, or not more than one. This is also handy if there's married, single, widow, divorced. So there's initial choice and there's radio choice, which is the same thing except a dot. It starts with 2. So maybe we're going to do married, single, widow, divorced. So let's add multiples. So we'll do that during the signing as well. And I'll show you what it looks like, how they can only pick one of those fields. Otherwise, if you wanted them to pick all of them, you would just do it as a checkbox, and they have to pick all of them. See that little red asterisk? That means it's required. Okay. But generally, you're just going to be doing signature and initials. You have other options. Signer field is just a little shortcut that you can do. So let's say you have a third or a fourth signer. The forms are set up for 2 signers. So you can add 3 or 4 people to sign, drag their signature down where it needs to be, and then you do have to type out their name under the box. So you can just click their full name, and it's just a shortcut instead of drawing a text box and typing it. So if I had Angela selected, I could just put Angela's name anywhere. It doesn't even have to be under a signature. If I forgot to put it on the document somewhere, I can just drag her name onto that field. Okay. Same thing with email address. It will pull the person's email address. Date and time is done here as well. Okay. So multiple ways to add the date or time. You can click and drag from here. I can select it here as well. Okay. And then markups are things that you as the agent are going to do. So if there does need to be a line of text added, for example, the binzer, you're doing the seller's response for the binzer, we would just go onto the form, click the text box so that it highlights, and we just click on the form wherever we want to add it. Let's go here. So I would say to stretch the box out, because otherwise it's going to make it more of a block. Let's go ahead and enter agent text. See how it just wraps around unless you make it long enough. So if you do need it to be longer, you just want to click on it. Sometimes it's a little hard to get to. Once you have that cross, you can also move it around so you can line it up better on the line. And you're just kind of looking for that blue box at the end to get that arrow. Okay. And then we can close out of here. You do have options to change your font size. We can make this blue or green. That's a little hard to see. You can change the style, you can change the size, make it bold, italic, etc. Okay, so we'll close out of here. Any questions on adding signing locations? Again, most of it's done for you, but if you do need to click and drag anything, you would select your signer and do it from here. Okay. You also have the option in markups to do other things. So you can draw a line. So the line will actually let you draw this red line. You never, ever want to do this through the text, the verbiage of the form. So it is actually copyright violation to line through any verbiage on the form. You can use the red line if you're in the additional terms and conditions section and there are no more and you want to make that obvious, you can do that, but you never want to line through the text. You would have to do an addendum or you would talk to your broker about how to proceed, but never line through the text. Let me just delete that. I can find my delete. I'm not sure how to delete, you guys. Oh, there it is, delete. Okay. And delete. Okay. Any questions on adding signing locations? So really you're telling the system who is signing, which documents we're signing, and then you're making sure all of your signatures and initials are in the right places. Options we're really not going to go to, signing details, just additional things that you can do. You can set an expiration date if there's a counter offer that expires at a certain time. If you think your clients aren't going to sign immediately, it'll send them email reminders, things like that. So we're really not going to go there. And then if you want to give feedback, you can. So once we have all of these places added, we would just click next. If you ever wanted to stop where you were, you can save and exit and then come back into the signing and complete it later. But once we have everything ready to go, we're going to click next. You do have the option to customize the invitation. So here is Angela. So here's a little text box for Angela. Hello to Angela. And there's also a text box for Rebecca. So we can send a separate message that only Rebecca will see. And then we can save. The instructions will be in the email. Your contact information will be in the email. So you don't have to put any of that there. We can just go ahead and send if we don't want to customize. So then it's just going to take us back to my list of signings. So I'm still in my transaction. I'm just in the signings menu portion of it. And if I already created a signing, it's going to be here. So if you know you created a signing for this transaction and you don't see it, it might have gone to the classic screen. So just make sure you're in the version that you were using. And then if you want to add another one, you can click add. So we are going to wait for that invitation to come through. So I go to my email, it says your signature is requested. If you have more than one signer, maybe you have a husband and wife sharing an email address, it will tell them who's going to sign this particular session. So it will say, hello, Rebecca, or it will say, hello, Angela. So here's the other one, hello, Angela. So let's start Angela's first. We have to accept our terms. And they can scroll through and read everything if they want to and just start clicking when they're ready, or they can click the start button and it will drag them down to the first place they need to click. So they're only going to see the places that they need to sign. If someone else has not already signed, they won't see the other person's signatures. If somebody signed before them, the actual signature and initials will show on the document. So that will be done in real time. So all we have to do is click and click and click. So remember, I deleted one of those options. So we have to sign premises constructed prior to 1978. If they say I'm clicking and it's just scrolling too fast and I'm trying to read it, just tell them to stop and scroll up. So they can stop and scroll. I'm going to miss something on purpose to show you what happens if they miss something. It's going to show them the percentage of progress across the top. So if your clients call you and say, I signed everything, there's no complete button. What do I do now? How do I send it back to you? Tell them to make sure the progress says 100% at the top, or it means they missed something. So we're just going to keep clicking here. We're about to go into our buyer pre-closing walkthrough, which my client has no idea happened. They didn't even realize we switched to another document. So you just really want to make it easy on them and have them only sign the place that you want them to sign. If they missed something, it will scroll back to that place. And once we sign that, they're going to get the message, do you want to complete your signing? If they still want to look through things, they can close out and scroll through. When they are ready to finish, they can finish. They can print what they've done or download what they've done, but they are going to get a copy automatically once everybody signs. There's also an option here to reject. If one person rejects the signing, no one else can complete anything. So if one signer sees that pricing is incorrect, or if there's a signing place missing, instead of having them reject it, just have them close out. They can just close out of the window, contact you, you can fix what's wrong, and they can continue on. Okay. They also have some options here to change their signature font. If they like a different font, that's where they would change it. If you do that, obviously it makes you sign all over again because you made a change. So So we'll do that as quickly as possible. And then let's see, feedback. Your clients also have the option to leave feedback. So we go through all the options. These are just the disclosures that they signed. So they can change their signature and view the disclosures. So they can exit, they can close out, they can complete. So the only way that the next person will get invited or that you will be notified that everything was completed and the signing will complete is if they click finish. And then it confirms that yes, you want to complete. So they can give feedback or not. We are going to go through the other signing in just a minute, but I want to show you what everything looks like if you've sent it out and you're trying to check the progress. So let's say you sent it out, started working with another client, you log back into your program to see the progress, multiple places to check. You can check your agent dashboard and look for the signing itself. That's the one we just sent out. It will show me the status is sent. I can click on it to open it up and see what's going on. So if you notice a blue edit button here, that means that person has not yet signed. That's your first clue. So there's not an edit button here, which is my first hint that Angela signed. My other hint is that the shield here is in green, meaning she agreed to the terms and conditions. And it is kind of hard to tell the difference between check marks, but this one is green, and approved means they completed all of their signatures. So if you only see this green and this is still grayed out, it means they did not complete all of their signatures. They need to go back in and click everything. If you do make a mistake with the email address, here's a way to edit that. You would just make your changes, click save, and it will resend the invitation to the corrected email address. If your signer says, I still didn't get my invitation and you know the email is correct, there's a resend button up here. So anybody who did not already sign will get another invitation. Okay. If you make a mistake, if you notice if somebody calls and says, I'm missing a signature line or the pricing is incorrect or whatever needs to happen, come up here to more and you want to reset. So it doesn't say edit, it says reset, because once we go in to make a change, the first person who already signed will have to sign again. Anytime you make a change to any signing session, documents, anything, everybody needs to know. So the person who already signed will have to sign again. So just be really careful before you send things out so you don't have to have people sign again. Let's say Angela signed and now Rebecca says, you know what, can you just meet me in person? I don't want to do this electronically. I'm having trouble. Please just print it out for me and let me sign it by hand. What you can do is, again, come to more and you can say force signing completion, which will allow you to print a copy that has Angela's signatures on it, and then Rebecca can hand sign. So all of the signatures will be on the same page. If you don't force the signing completion, there's no way to print out the form with just Angela's signatures. Okay. So that's what's happening before everybody completes. Let's go back to my invitation and hello, Rebecca, start signing. I'm going to accept. I'm going to start. I wonder why I don't see the other signatures there. They should be there. Well, this is the one that we did not change. So watch what happens with the lead-based paint. So it removed the first one. So if your clients don't realize this is a one or the other, it's going to remove one of them. So if you're confident that they see that the top option is correct and they're not going to skip to the next signing location, you can leave it. Otherwise, I encourage you to delete what's there and only make them sign the one that they need to sign. Okay, so we'll keep scrolling down. A couple other things we did differently here. We added things. So here is my signature that is required. Here's my initial that is required. Here's my check boxes that are required. And then here's my an optional initial. So maybe there's a yes, no, not applicable. If I say yes, and I try to say not applicable, it doesn't let me select more than one. Okay. So that's the way to do that. Same thing here with the radio buttons. Married, single, widow, divorced. Well, I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm single, I'm widowed. It only lets you pick one. Okay. And then here's my signature that will put my date and time automatically. Here's my agent text that I added. And then the buyer pre-closing walkthrough was the last thing we did that was different. So we didn't delete any of the sections. So they have to click and accept or decline. You might have a client that just thinks, oh, well, my agent put it there, I'm going to accept it. Yep, I'm going to accept it. Sure, I accept that too. Okay. And when we're finished, we complete the signing. Close out of here. We go back into my session here. So again, we can look at the status here on our overview page. We can also come to our list of signings and see the status here. So now it shows as completed. So if I open that up, I will have the option to view my signed documents. So there's all of my signatures together on one document. I can also upload them directly to the cloud. And if I want the certificates of authenticity, I can view them here as well. Okay, so there's going to be 3 places that your signed copies will go. One of them will be directly in the signing itself. Another one will be by email. Everybody involved in the signing will get an email that says signing complete. So both of your signers and you as the agent are going to get an email that allows you to download the signed copies, to download the individual documents. Same thing with the certificates. If someone else needs a copy, if the other agent needs a copy or somebody needs a copy of the documents, you do have the option to forward this email so they can just click the link. However, this is a no reply email. So if the other agent replies back to this email and says, sorry, we already have an accepted offer, which has happened, you're not going to be notified. So I would suggest downloading everything, forwarding the copies from your email. That way, if somebody needs to reply to you, they're replying to your email. So just be careful and know that this is a no reply email. So that was place number 2 that you'll get your signed copies. Place number 3 is in the transaction itself. So if I go back to my transaction, which was 123 Glendale Boulevard, there is a copy in the signings portion. There's also a copy in the document section. So there's going to be a folder for that particular signing name, and everything with a green padlock is something that was signed, or it's the certificate of authenticity. So let's say we sent out this purchase contract, we got all of this back signed, and then there's a counter offer presented and we want to make a change to our purchase contract. We can come back to our forms. So we still have our fillable forms here. I can open up my purchase contract, make any changes I want to make to the pricing, to the close of escrow date, any of the terms, save and exit here. And then I can start another signing. So I can go back into my signings, start a brand new one, upload that new version of the purchase contract and get that signed. And then when that comes back signed, in my document section will be a folder for that particular new purchase contract, updated, counter offer, whatever you want to call it. So you do want to keep track of the names of your signings so that you know what everything is, so that it's not confusing. Okay. I know that seemed like a lot of information, but honestly, if you go in and click around, it's pretty simple. Remember, main menu on the left, transaction menu on the right, plus sign to add something new. Your 3 circles are your menu bubbles, and your basket is how you can access additional menu options and how you can do things to more than one document at a time or more than one contact at a time. Okay. And then with the signings, we can just go in, add something new. See how it says none found, and we know we did signings? It's on the classic tab. So we just want to go to the new tab to make sure we see everything. Any questions on creating a transaction or creating a signing? Okay, so if your brains are full, you are welcome to sign out of class now. I'm going to show some shortcuts, creating your own templates, creating your own clauses, and then how to share things if you're working in a team. So the way we do that is in the settings section. So let me go through the settings real quick. So your preferences at the top is your profile. So if you ever want to check on your profile, you can come to user information, change your time zone. Remember, we do not do daylight savings. So if you're getting documents back showing that they were signed an hour before or after and you're not sure why, check your profile for your daylight savings and make sure it's unchecked. The phone number that prints on the bottom of your forms is going to be here. So as you update and change companies, it'll update your company information, but you have the option to use a company phone or a cell phone number, so the phone won't update. So if you notice that it's incorrect, just come to the user information section and add your phone number. The email address looks like it can be changed here, but it will always revert back to what your local association has on file. So as transaction desk updates twice a day, it's going to keep pulling from what your local has on file. So if you notice it keeps changing back, contact your local. It will update with the national and with Arizona and transaction desk automatically. Office information cannot be changed. All of this does need to go through your local association. The exception is going to be the office MLS ID. So if there isn't one in the database, it reverts to the office NERDS number. So if you're looking at this 9-digit number and you can't figure out what that is, give me a call. I can change it in the database, and then your whole entire company will have the correct office MLS ID. You can also add a custom signature. So when you're emailing documents to your clients, you can add a signature here. You can also add branding. So when you noticed my signing invitation, it had pictures in it. So you can do a company banner, you can do an individual photo. So that's all going to be in my preferences section at the top. So the next thing we're going to do is create our own clauses. So again, this was our little shortcut. If we had a paragraph that we didn't want to type all the time, we are always going to create our own personal clauses. Anything that's already there, we can edit. So all we would do would be click on it, make our changes, and save. If we want to add something new, we always look for the plus sign to add something new. We're going to add a new clause. We give it a name. Maybe we're going to call this COVID information. Sadly, we still need to do that. And then we would add our text. And then save. Okay, so very simple. If you end up with 15 clauses and you want to start adding folders, you have the option to add a folder. So maybe there's a bunch of clauses for particular HOA information or things like that. So you can do subfolders. Okay, so very simple to add a clause. So you're always going to do personal clauses, plus sign to add. Templates is another great time saver. So if you know you're always going to be using the same forms every single time you do a transaction, instead of having to add them manually each time, we're going to create a template. So we already have a listing template created. We're going to create a purchase template by clicking our plus to add. If you have broker features, you have the option to make a template that your entire office can use, or just that you personally want to use. If you do not have broker features, you won't see this option. It'll only be something you can use. And all you have to do is give it a name. Call it whatever you want. I'm going to call this one purchase template. And we're going to save it. If you have checklists that you often use in your transactions, you can add them here. If you use the same contacts over and over, like the same title company, you can add them here. You never want to add buyer or seller information or property information into your template. Your template is just blank forms, you know, the same people you would use all the time as a contact. So it's just a little bit of a shortcut. So documents and forms are the two things you can add. We're going to start with the forms. Those are our fillable forms from our libraries. So again, you're going to see all of the libraries you have access to. We're going to click the AAR library, and just like we did in the transaction, we just click on the form that we want to add. So add as many things as you want. Again, we can do a search. So if I just want to search the word purchase for my purchase contract, I'm only in the AAR library. So I'm only going to, oh, I'm sorry. It is going to show me all the libraries. So there's my Tucson library form again. So I click on my purchase contract, undo my search, scroll through whatever we want. Again, my basket will show me what I've added. If I decide I don't need 2 addendums all the time, I can remove it now, or I can add it to the transaction and remove it later. It doesn't matter. So we'll close and we'll add. I can still change the order of the form. So if I want my buyer advisory to be first, I'm just going to click and drag. And then if I ever want to make any changes, I can either add more forms or I can delete forms. So I can click my menu bubble here and delete that form. If I want to delete multiples, I can check my circle and go to my basket and delete multiples. Okay. The system will never let you add an outdated form. Okay. Let me show you that in a second. First, we're going to add documents. So these were our forms. If I also want to add documents, remember when I added my pet agreement, or if you have something that you often upload from your computer, add it here. So we're going to add a document. You can upload a file from your computer. You can go into document storage, go into your own folders. There was my pet agreement. So now I don't have to go through all those steps every time. Okay. So this saves for you automatically. The update button is just if you give it a change in name or any of these fields up here. Otherwise, it's saving for you automatically. So let me go back to my template list here and show you what it looks like if there's an updated form. So maybe we've updated the purchase contract and you go into your transaction and you add your template and you think, where's the purchase contract? I know it's in my template. If you come to your template and you go to your forms list and you see this form has been disabled, it means there's a newer version. So it will never, ever let you add the outdated version. You can just add it directly to your transaction from your library. We can come into our template later, delete the old version and add the new version. Okay. So let's go ahead and apply our template. So let's start a new transaction. We're going to come back to our main page. We're going to create a transaction. We'll call this one testing the template. One of the places we can apply it is here. So I can apply my template here. I'm going to ignore the import data for now and just click create. If I want to jump right over to my forms or my documents, if I click forms, there everything is from my template. I can still make any changes I want to make. I can change the order of the forms. I can delete a bunch of forms. I can add more forms. None of that will affect my template. Once it's applied here, you're out of the template and this is only affecting the transaction. Same thing with my documents. I added that pet agreement. Here it is. If I don't end up using it, all I have to do is delete it. And it's just deleting it from my transaction. It did not delete anything from my template. So let's do another one. Let's say we start a new transaction and we're so happy to have a new deal that we just create my transaction and we start moving forward and we get to the form section and we realize, oh, I had a template created. I don't want to have to manually add everything. You have menu bubbles at the top of the page that allows you to apply your template from here. So you just select your template from the dropdown and apply it. And there you go. If you have multiple templates, maybe you have a smaller template for maybe just, I know Sun City has different forms that they require for certain things. So if you can make a Sun City template and then you can apply a second template. So we come back up to our menu bubbles, go to my apply template option, and I can apply my second template. So we're just going to do the listing template. It's the only other one I have, and it will pull those forms. If you see this quick yellow pop-up, there are forms that are no longer valid. That's alerting you that there are outdated forms in your template and they did not add here. So you can just click your add button, go to your library, which will have the most recent forms, and add them from here and change your template later. Another thing you have the option to do, if you start a transaction and you add all your forms and you think this would make a really nice template, you can actually create a template from here. So I can click my menu options, click create template, and give it a name. This is my super awesome template. It will not pull your contact information. It's not going to pull your buyer or sellers. Even if you started filling out the forms and had property information, it will not pull that information. It's just going to pull your blank forms. Okay. If you add a template again, so if I go back into apply template and I add my purchase template again, it will add everything a second time. It won't even warn me that I have that form already. So if you have the same form in multiple templates and you add both, it's going to add it again. So now I have 2 buyer advisories, I have 2 purchase contracts, 2 addendum number 1s. The fields are linked together. So remember, you can't fill out different information for buyer, seller, premises address, etc. The additional terms and conditions fields could be different because those are not linked together. So if you do make this mistake, you can either select the duplicates and delete them, or you can just delete your transaction and start over. Okay. One final thing I want to show you guys is how you can share if you're working in a team. So we need to go back to our settings to set it up. And we're going to go to our teams and sharing menu option. So I already have a couple teams in here. If I want to add another one, always plus to add something new. And I'm going to name it. So this is Team Awesome. So first you have to tell the system who is on your team. So you're only going to see the people from your branch office. If you work for HomeSmart and there's a Scottsdale branch and a Glendale branch, you will not see the people from the other branch. You'll only see your own people. So I'm going to go ahead and add people who know what I'm doing so they don't panic when they get an email that they're in a share group. And then we add the members. You will see people who are no longer in your company. You will not be able to share anything with them. They don't have access. This is just basically a roster of anybody who's ever been with your company. So if you know that Zach is no longer here, even if you add him to the share group, he's not going to receive any documents. So we're going to add our members, and then we're going to give them permissions. So I can tell the system that PK can only read everything. She can only view things, but she cannot fill anything out. We can give Maggie write permissions, which means she can fill things out, but she cannot add, create new signings and things like that. Full permissions means they can do everything that you can do. So we can create new signings, we can add or delete documents, things like that. You can come and change these permissions anytime. You can also add or remove members anytime. So if we want to remove PK from the group, we can make that choice, save our settings, and it will change that information immediately. So how do I actually share something with someone? Well, first of all, if somebody shares something with you, you're going to see a little orange box here that says shared. That means you did not create this transaction. It was created by PK or it was created by Maggie. But depending on my permissions, I can open it up and do things in that transaction. Be aware, everybody who is part of the sharing group can delete the entire transaction. So if I'm cleaning up my page and I think, oh, this is closed, it's done, I don't want to see it anymore, I downloaded my copies, I want to delete it. If I do that, I delete it from everybody's account, including the creator. So please be careful when you are sharing with people because they have the option to delete the entire transaction and there is not a way to get it back. Okay, so if you share something with someone, they'll see the orange box. If you have a transaction that you want to share with someone, we just click on our menu bubbles at the top and there's a share option, Teams Share. So you just select the team you're sharing with, move it over. You can check the box to notify them. They'll get an email saying Rebecca has shared a transaction with you, or they'll just notice it when they log in. there's not a way for you to see that you shared with someone. So you would have to open up your transaction and come into the sharing menu option to see. If you want to unshare with your team, just select them and move them back to the list and save. So you have complete control when you do the sharing over the permissions, who's in the team, and anytime you want to stop sharing. Okay, so those are my best shortcuts in my settings feature. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to call us or email us with specific questions. Otherwise, feel free to go in and practice, because anything you add, if you do test transactions, I just always do a bunch for class, you can delete them. So I can come in here and just delete anything that I don't want to see. Same thing with your signings. If I do a bunch of test signings and I don't want to see them anymore, I can just click my menu bubbles and delete that particular signing. So you can play around as much as you want, clean up your page, delete your contacts, things like that. So I appreciate everybody joining me today. Have a fantastic rest of the day and stay safe.